The door clicked shut, and the sound echoed like a gunshot in my chest. I froze, my sketchbook slipping from my hands onto the bed, as Mateo, my roommate of 6 months, turned the lock with a deliberate twist. His dark eyes, usually so steady, flickered with something I couldn't name, something that made my pulse race and my throat tighten. I'd always known Mateo Alvarez was trouble. Not the kind that starts fights or skips rent, but the kind that sneaks into your heart when you're not looking. At 25, he was a wildfire of a man. 6 feet of lean muscle, with a sharp jawline and a laugh that could melt winter. A straight guy, or so he'd claimed when we met, fresh off a Craigslist ad in Portland, Oregon. Me? I'm Jasper Reed, 24. A black graphic designer with a knack for overthinking and a secret I'd buried deeper than the Willamette River. I was falling for him. That night, in my cramped bedroom with its peeling wallpaper and fairy lights, Mateo stood too close. The air felt thick, like the moment before a storm breaks. "Jasper," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "I need to tell you something." My stomach dropped. I'd spent months dodging the way my heart skipped when he brushed past me in the kitchen, or how his hand lingered on my shoulder during late-night talks over cheap beer. Now, here he was, locking us in, and I braced for the words I dreaded. "I know you're into me, and I'm not like that." The story begins 6 months earlier, on a rainy April afternoon when I first met Mateo. Portland was drowning in its usual spring drizzle, and I was desperate for a roommate after my last one bailed for a tech job in Seattle. I'd posted an ad online, expecting the usual parade of weirdos, but then Mateo showed up at my doorstep, dripping wet and grinning like he'd just won the lottery. "Yo, I'm Mateo," he said, shaking water from his dark curls. "This place got a vibe, man." His accent carried a faint trace of his Mexican-American roots, and his energy filled the room like sunlight. We hit it off instantly. He was a barista by day, an aspiring musician by night, always strumming his guitar or humming melodies that stuck in my head. I was the quiet one, sketching logos for freelance gigs or binge-watching sci-fi shows in my room. Our apartment, a quirky second-floor walk-up in southeast Portland, became a haven of late-night debates, shared takeout, and playlists that blended his indie rock with my R&B. But beneath the easy camaraderie, I was fighting a losing battle with my feelings. I'd known I was gay since I was 14, growing up in a small Oregon town where being out wasn't an option. I'd learned to hide it, to smile through the slurs at school and the sermons at church. Moving to Portland for college had been my escape, but even here, I kept my guard up. Mateo, with his effortless charm and straight guy confidence, was a walking reminder of what I couldn't have. He'd talk about his ex-girlfriends, his hookups, his type, always women, always out of my orbit. I told myself I was fine just being his friend. But then there were the moments that messed with my head. The time he fell asleep on the couch, his head on my lap, while we watched moonlight. Or the night he grabbed my hand during a crowded concert, saying, "Don't get lost, man," with a grin that felt too personal. I'd lie awake afterward, replaying every glance, every touch, wondering if I was imagining the spark in his eyes. I wasn't stupid. I knew straight guys didn't cross that line. But Mateo had a way of blurring lines without even trying. By October, the tension was unbearable. I'd catch myself staring when he walked out of the bathroom, towel slung low on his hips, or when he'd lean over my shoulder to critique my sketches, his breath warm against my neck. I started avoiding him, taking extra freelance gigs, staying late at coffee shops. But Mateo noticed. He'd text me, "Where you at, Jay? Miss your face." I'd laugh it off, but each message chipped away at my resolve. That night, when he locked my door, I thought I'd hit my breaking point. "What's up?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands clasped to keep them from shaking. Mateo paced, running a hand through his hair, his usual swagger replaced by something raw, almost frantic. "I've been thinking," he said, stopping to face me. His eyes locked onto mine, and I swear the room shrank. "About you. About us." My heart stopped. I'd spent months bracing for rejection, for him to call me out, to laugh it off or worse, move out. But the way he said us wasn't a joke. It was a question, a confession, a bomb dropped in the middle of my carefully guarded world. "What do you mean?" I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to hope, but hope was dangerous. I'd been burned before, by crushes who turned cruel, by friends who ghosted when they found out. Mateo wasn't like them, but he was still the straight guy I'd pinned my heart on. Wasn't he? He took a step closer, his sneakers scuffing the hardwood. "I'm not good at this," he said, his voice cracking. "But I can't stop thinking about you, Jasper. Not as a friend. Not just that." He swallowed hard, and I saw fear in his eyes. Fear I recognized, because I'd lived it my whole life. I think I'm in love with you." The words hit like a tidal wave. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. My straight roommate, the guy I'd convinced myself was untouchable, was standing in my room, door locked, telling me he loved me. And the worst part? I believed him. That confession changed everything. Over the next few days, we danced around it, awkward and unsure. Mateo would brush my hand in the kitchen, then pull back like he'd been burned. I'd catch him watching me, his expression torn between longing and panic. We didn't talk about it. Not yet. But the air between us crackled with unspoken questions. I was terrified, too. I'd never let myself fall this hard. Not when I knew the risks. Portland was progressive, sure, but the world wasn't always kind to guys like me, and Mateo was stepping into a storm he'd never faced. He'd grown up in a tight-knit family, all Catholic, all expecting him to settle down with a nice girl someday. What would they say if they knew? What would he say when the reality hit? One night, we sat on the fire escape, sharing a joint and staring at the city lights. "You ever think about what people would say?" I asked, my voice quiet. "Your family, your friends?" Mateo exhaled, the smoke curling into the night. "All the time," he admitted. "My dad, he's old school. Thinks being gay is a choice, a sin, whatever. But I don't care, Jay. Not enough to lose this." He turned to me, his eyes fierce. "I've never felt this way about anyone. Not any girl, not ever. It's you." I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. I'd seen guys experiment, dip a toe in, then run when it got real. Was Mateo curious? Or was this something deeper? I didn't know, but I let him kiss me that night, his lips tentative but warm, and for a moment, I let myself hope. The kiss on the fire escape lingered like a song stuck in my head, replaying every time I closed my eyes. Mateo's lips, soft and searching, had cracked open something in me, a hope I'd spent years locking away. But hope is a fragile thing, and by morning, I was drowning in questions. Was this real, or was I just his experiment? The next week was a blur of stolen glances and hesitant touches. Mateo would linger in the kitchen while I cooked, his shoulder brushing mine as he reached for a spoon. I'd catch him smiling at me over his guitar, mid-strum, like I was the only person in the world. But we hadn't talked about the kiss, or his confession, or what us even meant. It was like we were both holding our breath, waiting for the other to make it real. I threw myself into work, sketching logos for a local brewery, but my mind kept drifting to Mateo. He was at the coffee shop most days, slinging espressos and charming customers with that grin of his. I'd stop by sometimes, pretending I needed caffeine, but really just to see him. One afternoon, I walked in and found him laughing with a coworker, a petite girl with pink hair named Lila. She touched his arm and he didn't pull away. My stomach twisted. Was he flirting? Was he still straight, just playing with me? I left without ordering, my chest tight with doubt. That night, I confronted him. We were in the living room, the TV droning some reality show neither of us cared about. Mateo, I said, my voice sharper than I meant. What are we doing? You say you love me, but then I see you with Lila, and I don't know what to think. His face fell and he muted the TV. Lila? She's just a friend, Jay. I wasn't. He stopped, rubbing his face. I'm messing this up, aren't I? I don't know how to do this. I've never not with a guy. His honesty hit me hard, stripping away my anger. He wasn't playing me, he was scared, just like me. Then talk to me, I said softer now. What do you want? Because I can't keep guessing. I hated how vulnerable I sounded, but I needed to know. I'd spent too long hiding my heart to let it break now. Mateo stood, crossing the room to sit beside me on the couch. I want you, he said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. I don't know what that makes me, gay, bi, whatever. I just know I can't stop thinking about you. About us. He took my hand, his fingers warm and calloused from his guitar. I'm in, Jasper. All in. But I need you to show me how. My heart pounded, but I nodded. Okay, I whispered. We'll figure it out together. That night, we kissed again. Slower this time, like we were mapping out new territory. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. The next few weeks were a crash course in trust. Mateo started opening up about his family, his mom's tamale recipe, his dad's strict rules, his little sister who wanted to be a doctor. He'd never told anyone he was questioning his sexuality, not even his best friend, Diego, who lived across town. Diego's cool, Mateo said one night, sprawled on my bed while I sketched. But he'd probably freak if he knew about us. Would you tell him? I asked, my pencil pausing. I hadn't told anyone either. Not my coworkers, not my sister back home. Being out was one thing. Being out with Mateo, who was still figuring himself out, felt like a bigger risk. Maybe, Mateo said, staring at the ceiling. But not yet. I want this to be just us for a while. I got it, but it stung. I wanted to shout about us from the rooftop, but I also knew the world wasn't always safe for love like ours. So we kept it quiet, stealing moments in the apartment. Cooking together, watching movies, falling asleep tangled on the couch. But secrets have a way of slipping out. One Saturday, Diego showed up unannounced, pounding on our door with a six-pack and a grin. Yo, Mateo, you ghosting me or what? He called, stepping inside. I was in the kitchen, chopping onions for dinner, and Mateo froze, his eyes darting to me. Diego didn't notice at first, but when Mateo grabbed my wrist to pull me into a quick hug, Diego's smile faltered. What's this? Diego asked, half laughing, half confused. Mateo let go of me like I was on fire, his face flushing. Just messing around, he said, too fast. My heart sank. I knew he was scared, but the dismissal cut deep. I mumbled an excuse and retreated to my room, leaving them to their beers and small talk. Later, Mateo knocked on my door. Jay, I'm sorry, he said, stepping inside. I panicked. Diego's my boy, but he's not ready for this. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Then when will you be ready? I asked, my voice shaking. I can't be your secret forever, Mateo. I've done that before, and it broke me. I thought of high school, of the boy who'd kissed me in secret, then called me names in public. I couldn't go back to that. Mateo looked like I'd slapped him. I'm not ashamed of you, he said, his voice fierce. I just need time. Please, Jay. His eyes were pleading, and against my better judgment, I nodded. But the doubt was back, sharper now like a splinter I couldn't pull out. The splinter of doubt grew into a wedge, splitting my heart with every passing day. Mateo and I were still us, cooking pasta at midnight, laughing over his terrible dance moves. But the weight of his hesitation hung over us like a storm cloud. I wanted to be patient, to give him time to navigate the mess of coming out, but every time he pulled back in public, it felt like a rejection. One chilly November evening, we went to a local bar, the Rusty Anchor, to catch a friend's band play. The place was packed, all fairy lights and sticky floors, with hipsters and locals shouting over the music. Mateo was in his element, joking with strangers, his arms slung casually around my shoulders. For a moment, I let myself believe we were a real couple, out in the open, unafraid. Then Diego walked in. He spotted us immediately, his eyes narrowing as he took in Mateo's arm around me. "Yo, Alvarez, you two attached at the hip now?" he said, his tone teasing but sharp. Mateo's arm dropped, and he laughed too loudly, stepping away to clap Diego on the back. I stood there, invisible, my face burning. The rest of the night, Mateo stuck close to Diego, leaving me to sip my beer alone, watching the band without really hearing them. When we got home, I couldn't hold it in. "You did it again," I said, tossing my keys on the counter. "You act like I'm nothing when he's around. What's the point of this if you're ashamed of me?" "I'm not ashamed," Mateo snapped, his voice rising. "You don't get it, Jasper. Diego's known me since we were kids. If I tell him, it's real. It's not just us anymore. It's my family, my whole life." He paced the living room, his hands clenched. "I'm trying, okay? But this is hard." "Hard for you," I shot back. "Try being the one who's out, who's been out, and still has to hide because you're not ready." "I'm not your experiment, Mateo." The words spilled out before I could stop them, raw and jagged. His face crumpled, and for a second, I thought he might cry. Instead, he grabbed his jacket and stormed out, the door slamming behind him. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch, sketching aimlessly, my mind replaying every moment we'd shared. I hated how much I loved him, how much I wanted to believe he'd come around. But I'd been here before, waiting for someone to choose me, and it always ended the same. Mateo came back at dawn, his eyes red-rimmed, his hair a mess. "I walked all night," he said, sitting across from me. "I went to the river just thinking. About you, about me, about what I'm scared of." He leaned forward, his voice soft but steady. "I don't want to lose you, Jasper. I'm going to tell Diego. Today. I promise." I wanted to believe him, but promises are cheap when fear's in the driver's seat. Still, I nodded, too tired to argue. "Okay," I said, "but I can't wait forever." That afternoon, Mateo invited Diego over. I stayed in my room, pretending to work, but my ears strained for every word. I heard Diego's laugh, then Mateo's voice, low and serious. "Man, I gotta tell you something," he said. My heart pounded. This was it, the moment he'd either step up or break us. The conversation stretched on, muffled through the walls. I caught fragments. Diego's raised voice, Mateo's quieter responses. Then silence. When the door opened, I braced myself. Mateo walked in, his face unreadable. "He's gone," he said, sitting on my bed. "He didn't take it well. Said some stuff about me, about you. But I told him I love you." I exhaled, relief and fear crashing together. "What did he say?" I asked, dreading the answer. Mateo shrugged, but his eyes were heavy. "He needs time. Might not talk to me for a while. But I don't care. I meant what I said, Jay. I'm in this." He reached for my hand, and this time I let him hold it. For the first time, I felt like we might actually make it. Mateo's confession to Diego was a turning point, but it didn't erase the tension. If anything, it made things messier. Diego stopped coming around, and Mateo's phone buzzed less often. He didn't say it, but I could see the loss in the way he stared at his guitar, plucking aimless notes. I wanted to fix it, to take away the weight of what he'd given up for me. But love doesn't work like that. All I could do was be there, and hope it was enough. We started building something real. We went on actual dates, quiet dinners at hole-in-the-wall restaurants, walks along the waterfront, holding hands when no one was looking. Mateo was trying, and I saw it in the way he'd squeeze my hand tighter when we passed a group of rowdy guys, or how he'd kiss me goodnight, no longer hesitating. But the fear never left his eyes, especially when he talked about his family. Thanksgiving was looming, and Mateo was dreading it. His parents lived an hour away in Salem, and he'd always gone home for the holidays. This year he invited me. "I want you there," he said one night, curled up against me on the couch. "But I'm not gonna lie, Jay. It's gonna be rough. They're not like Portland folks." I knew what he meant. My own family wasn't exactly waving pride flags. My mom had come around after years of awkward silences, but my dad still pretended I was going through a phase. I didn't know if I was ready to face Mateo's family, but I saw how much it meant to him. "I'll go," I said, my stomach nodding. "But we do this together, okay? No hiding." He nodded, but I could tell he was terrified. The drive to Salem was quiet, the radio filling the gaps between our small talk. His parents' house was a modest ranch style, all warm lights and the smell of roasted turkey. His mom, Elena, hugged me like I was family, but his dad, Carlos, gave me a stiff handshake, his eyes lingering a second too long. Mateo's sister, Sophia, 17 and sharp as a tack, grinned at me like she knew something. Dinner started fine, with small talk about my design work and Mateo's music. But then Sophia, with the innocence of a teenager who loves chaos, said, "So, Jasper, you and Mateo are like, together, right?" The table went silent. Elena froze, her fork midair. Carlos's face hardened. Mateo cleared his throat. "Yeah, we are," he said, his voice steady but his hand shaking under the table. I grabbed it, anchoring him. "I love him." Elena's eyes widened, but she didn't speak. Carlos stood, his chair scraping the floor. "Not in my house," he said, his voice low and cold. "You don't bring that here." He walked out, leaving a hole in the room. Sophia whispered, "I'm sorry," but Mateo just stared at his plate. Elena tried to smooth things over, asking about dessert, but the damage was done. We left early, the drive back to Portland heavy with silence. When we got home, Mateo broke down, tears streaming as he leaned against the wall. "I knew he'd react like that," he said, "but it still hurts." I held him, my own heart aching. "You were brave," I said. "You stood up for us." But I wondered if I'd pushed him too far, too fast. Love was supposed to lift you up, not tear your world apart. The fallout from Thanksgiving clung to us like damp Portland fog. Mateo was quieter, his usual spark dimmed. He still kissed me goodnight, still held my hand, but I could feel the weight of his family's rejection pressing on him. I wanted to fix it, but some wounds you can't bandage. All I could do was love him through it. Christmas was a month away, and I decided we needed a break from the city, from the ghosts of his dad's words. I booked us a weekend at a cabin in the Columbia River Gorge, just the two of us. "No phones, no drama," I said, tossing him a scarf as we packed. He smiled, a real one, and for the first time in weeks, I saw hope in his eyes. The cabin was small, all wood and flannel, with a fireplace and a view of snow-dusted trees. We spent the days hiking, our breath puffing in the cold, and the nights wrapped in blankets, talking about everything. Our fears, our dreams, the future. "I want a life with you," Mateo said one night, his voice soft by the fire. "Not just here, but everywhere. I don't care what anyone says." I believed him not because it was easy, but because he was trying. He'd started texting Sophia, who'd been sneaking him updates about their parents. Elena was coming around, asking questions, wanting to understand. Carlos was still a wall, but Mateo wasn't giving up. "He's my dad," he said. "I have to believe he'll get there." Back in Portland, things weren't perfect. Diego still hadn't come around, and we got stares sometimes, walking hand in hand downtown. But Mateo didn't pull away anymore. He'd squeeze my hand tighter, like he was claiming us, and it made my heart swell. We started telling people, my coworkers, his bandmates, even my sister, who screamed with excitement over FaceTime. Each step felt like a victory, small but hard one. One night, as we lay in bed, Mateo turned to me, his eyes serious. "I was scared that night I locked your door," he said. "Scared of what I felt, what it meant. But you made it safe to be me." He kissed me, slow and deep, and I knew we'd built something real. Not just love, but trust, the kind that holds you through the storms. The next morning, I found a note on the kitchen counter, in Mateo's messy scrawl. "Meet me on the fire escape." I grabbed my coffee and climbed out, finding him with his guitar, strumming a melody he'd written for me. "It's us," he said, grinning. "Messy, scary, but ours." As he played, I looked out at the city, at the life we were building, and I knew we'd be okay. Not because it was easy, but because we chose each other every day, no matter what.